Welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. It's December 8th, 2024. It also happens to be the anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day. So those of you in the United States want to take that into remembrance. So we will be taking a look at the markets week ahead, as well as some major geopolitical shifts that have been happening while United States was asleep. So let's take a look and see how we could be affected on market open tomorrow. Now, starting with our favorite risk indicator, the MMRI, has dropped slightly. It's 273.3 at the moment, down a little bit. I believe it was about 275 at the ending of last week. Now, stocks closed higher again. Now, we've got the fear greed meter has dropped a little bit off of that greed territory, solid into neutral at 53 right now. So this means a little bit is pulling back out of this market. We've got a lot more money flowing into either cash positions or short-term cash positions, meaning basically short-term bonds and things of the like that are highly liquid, easily convertible back to US dollars. Now, this is a shift in the trades. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, these elements are affected by the 10-year yield, currently 4.17, and relative strength of the dollar is now just below 106. So losing finally a little bit of that strength that it was kind of clobbering other currencies with last week. Now with this, we've got Bitcoin back over 100,000 mark at the moment. We'll see if it hits this level and uses it as support. Okay, we've got Ethereum also coming up as a rising tide will float all ships. Now the current sentiment, we've got the FOMC's final 2024 meeting rate decision next week. This week, we're looking at what will affect that, which is the core CPI or inflation number. We just had the jobs number. I'll speak about that in a moment. And with Bitcoin hitting another record high. So we are also expecting the European Central Bank to hold its final policy meeting of the year on this Thursday. The expectation is quarter point rate cut. So this will be the fourth rate cut of this for them for this year. And they kind of all have to move together. I've explained this before, but if you're new here, the currencies and the central banks have to work together in lockstep, because otherwise they will really demolish the other currencies. And we've seen a couple of instances of late. It really skews not just the currencies, but the markets as well as the trade. So with this, I would like to speak a little bit about market caps. Now, this is for stocks. At the moment, we are at a 750 multiple of valuations for stocks. So this is the highest that it has been even since the pandemic and the Great Depression. So this is not a very good sign. This is coming from Goldman Sachs, looking at stock valuations. Now, what is driving this is not an actual valuation for the stock, but rather it is a major sign of inflation as prices rise and speculation of currency flowing into stocks because money is looking to get yield. And this is one of the easiest sectors as it is. But as I was saying, the greed is kind of moving off slight bit. So highly risk on is what it's been, retracing only slightly. So we'll see what Monday holds, especially with other things going on. Now, this calendar, we're only getting wholesale inventories, not really a big mover. We are getting the big one will be CPI on Wednesday, our inflation numbers, as well as the federal budget. Now, with this, we've got Thursday initial jobless claims and core CPI. So we'll take a look at those. Will also affect the decisions. Right now, there is an 86% expectation that the Fed will cut quarter point, just like the ECB. So we'll see how that comes in. Now, with this, what I would like to cover is there's been a couple of things. They're saying the United States consumer sentiment is at an 8 month high. Now, who they poll, I think, has a large difference in this, but it's been so suppressed for so long, it is finally a little bit higher. That doesn't mean it's necessarily good. It's just not as bad as it has been. So always important to pay attention to the way that they put these numbers and reports across. Now, with this, as I was saying, with all of these things happening, we've got the S&P 500 and NASDAQ both hit fresh highs after the payroll data. Now, the payroll data came in kind of as they were expecting, but because it wasn't worse, then it was positive for the markets, which is not unusual. So with this, I've got a couple of stock specific. Would like to speak about Google. This could be major for the markets as well. Obviously, tech sector. They were placed under federal supervision by CFPB. This is the Consumer Finance Protection Board. Now, they are a large regulatory board. Some say much too large. I would agree with that. And this is another portion that is the latest move in order to kind of break up Google, take away their search engine, and split the divisions up, saying that they have too much power under the monopolies. So with this, we've got Bitcoin again hitting all-time highs, as well as Ethereum. Now, what are we going to do with all of this money and all of this wonderful stuff that we find ourselves in America? Well, the Pentagon chief is announcing another $1 billion long-term aid for Ukraine. Whether they need it or not, going to get another billion with a B. So this was just announced yesterday. So let's move into that sector and see a little bit of what's going on now in Ukraine. They would say now there's been some negotiations. The president-elect is over there still, I believe. He was over with the opening of Notre Dame and in talks. Now, the US president-elect says time is ripe for immediate ceasefire negotiations. So I don't know what that $1 billion in aid would go to, but it doesn't generally go to the effort anyway. It just goes to the oligarchs and the banks at the top. So with this, he has been speaking with the both of them, also with Macron. They were invited over for that opening and got Zelensky and him to speak. So they are both sides, not just Zelensky, but Russia, Putin. They are talking about accepting under certain terms they may do a ceasefire. So with this, that could shift a lot of what is going on with there. Now, with this being the good part of it, we had Syria is the major news factor that, again, is going to be everywhere. But what happened with Syrian rebels have toppled the Assad dynasty, and as this says, Syrian state TV airing the statement, now this is formal, that Assad not just been overthrown, but has given orders for them to turn over the order to the new regime. So we've got this new order. It is the insurgents. Basically, they are now have just taken over Damascus, is my understanding. They also raided the Iranian embassy there. So major shift there we've got with this. Israel is bolstering their troops, and Iran is saying they are no longer backing certain groups there and bolstering their troops. They did pull out of their embassy prior to it being ransacked there. They did also ransack the presidential palace there in Syria, of course, and the leader Assad has fled to Russia. So with this, on the other side, we've got the European Union failing to agree on new Russian sanctions. Now, two unnamed members, but they're speculating that it's Latvia and Lithuania, have been holding up the latest round of anti-Moscow measures. This from the United States, attempting to sanction. One of them is Russian banking system. Now, the reason they're against this is because if that Russian bank is sanctioned, these European Union states can no longer purchase through an indirect means of Russian gas for their heat for the winter. So they are pushing back because they're in a dire position for their heat supplies for this winter. So with this, I'd like to end on a positive note. This is Notre Dame. They had a major reopening after it has been repaired from the fire that took it down. Absolutely beautiful. But with this, I will insert that there were a couple of political statements made as well, with not just the invitations who attended, but also who they sat next to. Now, of course, this is in France. So who sat between Macron, who is in charge at the moment, and his wife was the president-elect, while the current First Lady sat over on the other side. Now, this is quite the statement. However, there was recent political turmoil in France as well, and I believe this is kind of a key move, if you will, by Macron in order to get a little bit of backing by the incoming administration from the United States. So a lot of things going on here, a lot of up people at this, but if you can see it's true beauty, perhaps get over there and see the new version of this again. So with this, I wish you all a wonderful rest of your weekend. If you would join me on X now, I've got my new profile out. I'm going to leave the new one in the description, or Discord. We can have chats there and keep things up to go. So until I see you again, my friends, stay free.